July. Everybody is meaner when they are hot. Opening balance, 94 degrees. Additional charge, humidity. Service fee, the walk from the parking lot. Wearing black because the outfit required it. Today we are opening the heat ledger because everybody is meaner when they are hot, and some of us are expensive before the temperature gets involved. Heat changes the social contract. A small inconvenience at 70 degrees becomes an insult at 95. The person in front of you walks too slowly. The car takes too long to cool. The shirt touches the body in a way the shirt had no right to touch. Someone suggests sitting outside, as though outdoor seating is a gift rather than a test. I grew up in Tennessee. I know heat that arrives early, stays late, and carries humidity like an accomplice. The air does not simply surround you, and it participates. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, people sometimes speak about heat as a rare visitor. The buildings reveal they were not expecting company. Homes without air conditioning become ovens with excellent views. The temperature rises, and the entire region begins searching for fans that sold out yesterday. Heat is physical, and it is also economic. Comfort has equipment, square footage, transportation, shade, flexible work, and a utility bill. The ledger keeps track. The shirt has given up. A shirt can reach a point where it no longer represents the outfit. It represents the weather. At first, everything is fine, and the fabric falls correctly. The collar knows its job, and you leave the house with intention. Then, heat begins collecting evidence. The back changes color, and the underarms enter the conversation. The fabric clings in places the mirror did not preview. The shirt has not failed, and it has become honest. This is especially irritating when the look required effort. People say, everybody sweats, which is true and useless. Everybody also has a face. We still care what happens to it in photographs. I have learned the strategic value of patterns, layers, breathable fabric, an extra shirt, and standing with confidence while refusing to raise my arms. Fashion advice rarely admits that some bodies are expected to hide the evidence of being bodies. Sweat on one person reads athletic. On another, it reads sloppy, nervous, unhealthy, or unprepared. Larger bodies, dark clothes, professional spaces, gender presentation, and public scrutiny all change the meaning assigned to moisture. Heat does not create those judgments. It removes some of our ability to manage them. Ledger entry. One shirt, full price, now carrying the entire climate. Air conditioning can feel like weather when you have it, and wealth when you do not. The person inside a cooled home experiences heat as information. The person in an uncooled apartment experiences it as architecture. You can close blinds, run fans, freeze water, move to the coolest room, avoid using the oven, and still feel the temperature climb through the walls. At night, the heat remains in the mattress, like an unpaid balance. The ability to leave also costs money, and a hotel, a restaurant, and a movie ticket, a drive to somewhere cooler. Even the coffee shop requires transportation and an agreement to buy something while occupying the chair. Public cooling centers matter because private comfort is not evenly distributed. Yet reaching them may require travel during the hottest part of the day, time away from work, and a body able to move. Heat waves reveal the design assumptions inside buildings. Who was expected to live there? What climate did the builder imagine? What upgrades can the owner afford? Which windows open? Who controls the thermostat? I have stood in a cool building, wearing a jacket, while knowing someone else was trying to sleep beside a fan. Comfort can make inequality feel invisible because the body stops receiving the signal. Ledger entry. electricity, equipment, rent, and the privilege of forgetting the outside temperature. The car. A parked car in summer holds a grudge. You open the door and heat exits with the confidence of something that has been waiting to confront you. The seat is hot, and the steering wheel is hostile. Metal details become tiny legal claims. There is a dance, and open doors. Start the air, and avoid touching surfaces. Stand outside as though you did not just choose an outfit specifically to enter the vehicle. People with remote start have experienced a form of civilization. The rest of us should study. The car is another class system. Reliable air conditioning, tinted windows, covered parking, a short commute, and the ability to avoid public transit. Heat changes the value of each. I have driven while the air conditioning tried its best, and the sun continued entering through the glass with management authority. The body becomes divided, and face cool, back unconvinced. Ledger entry. Fuel used while the car idles, so a human being can touch the seat without legal representation. Perfume, at 94 degrees. Perfume changes in heat. A fragrance that felt elegant in the bedroom may become ambitious outside. Heat lifts the scent, pushes it forward, and lets it announce itself before the wearer has entered. I love fragrance. Scent can complete an outfit without appearing in the photograph. It follows the body, leaves briefly in a room, and attaches memory to air. In summer, application becomes negotiation. Too little, and the heat wins. Too much, and the perfume becomes the heat's project. There is also the body beneath it: sweat, skin, product, fabric, and the public fear of smelling like effort. People pretend expensive bodies do not have scent, unless the scent comes in a bottle. The perfume industry sells control. Notes of citrus, wood, amber, smoke, leather, rain. The body contributes its own chemistry and refuses to sign away authorship. Ledger entry. One expensive fragrance, now collaborating with humidity without being invited. Summer makes the body public. Clothing gets smaller, and fabric gets lighter. Arms and legs re-enter social space. People talk about beach bodies as though beaches conducted missions. For years, heat forced me into a conflict between physical comfort and visual protection. Wear less and feel watched, and wear more and become the weather's employee. A larger body is often expected to apologize in summer. Hide, cover, sweat discreetly, choose flattering lines, avoid the chair that looks uncertain, and accept that other people may treat your body as public health commentary. Weight loss does not erase that history. The body can change faster than the mind's weather. I have entered summer in a smaller body and still reached automatically for old forms of cover. The clothing fit differently, and the gaze I expected remained familiar. This is where before and after language fails. And there are many afters. The body changes. The sense of exposure updates on another schedule. I can enjoy clothing I once avoided, and I can feel beautiful. I can also have a hot day, where one glance sends me back into an older room. Ledger. Entry. No charge listed for the years spent. Learning which parts of the body were permitted to be comfortable. Outdoor events. Summer events love the phrase, outdoor venue. The phrase suggests light, air, space, and photographs. It does not mention folding chairs, limited shade, unclear hydration, sunscreen applied with increasing desperation, or the point when everyone begins evaluating whether the event has earned their continued presence. I have attended pride events, readings, festivals, and gatherings where the outfit, schedule, and body entered negotiations with heat. The stage may be covered, but the audience may not. The speaker may be standing under lights because apparently the sun was not enough. Heat affects attention. A beautiful sentence has competition when someone's thigh is attached to a plastic chair. Event planners know this, or should. And water is access. Shade is access. And seating is access. Clear information about surfaces, walking distance, and indoor options is access. The glamorous photograph rarely shows the person searching for a place to sit. Ledger entry: one event ticket, one bottle of water priced as a luxury mineral, and a growing desire to leave before the closing remarks. Public transit: heat on public transit is intimacy without consent. Bodies, share, air, and clothing carries the day. A delayed vehicle turns minutes into temperature, but the stop may have no shade. The bus may be cool, warm, or operating according to a climate philosophy no passenger understands. The person with a car can complain about traffic from a cooled seat. The person waiting outside is paying with skin. I think about workers traveling in uniforms, students carrying bags, elders, disabled riders, people bringing groceries home, and anyone whose day requires looking composed upon arrival. Heat follows them into the room, then disappears from the professional judgment made there. Late and sweaty, tired and flustered. The evaluator sees the result. The weather and route are absent from the file. Ledger entry: fare, plus the hidden cost of arriving visibly traveled. Tennessee heat had sound. Insects and fans. Air conditioners working with the low mechanical determination of something carrying a household. Ice in glasses and screen doors. Storms, threatening relief, and sometimes delivering only more humidity. As a child, heat could make a day feel endless. Summer stretched, and roads shimmered. The body understood shade as an object. Adults had rules, but do not sit in a hot car. Drink water and come inside. Do not run yourself sick. Wear shoes on surfaces that had been absorbing sun all afternoon. There were also people working through it. And lawns, construction, kitchens, warehouses, fields, stores, roads. Heat was not a leisure aesthetic, and it was part of the job. I remember air conditioning as a destination. Entering a store could feel like crossing a border. The blast of cold air near the door. The body becoming aware of sweat because the cooling had begun. At Piggly Wiggly, the store had its own climate. Customers entered, carrying the outside on their clothes. Frozen food aisles offered a brief kind of mercy. The register kept you in one place while the doors opened and closed. Opened and closed. Ledger entry. Childhood memory. No dollar amount available. Paid in sensation. The thermostat marriage. A shared thermostat reveals whether two people believe comfort is objective. Jay and I can experience the same room differently. This is physically ordinary and emotionally inconvenient. One person wants the air lower. The other has located a blanket. The utility bill waits in the middle, like a mediator with bad news. Heat makes negotiations less graceful, and at a reasonable temperature, people discuss. At an unreasonable temperature, people accuse the room. Why is it so hot in here? The room does not answer. The other person feels implicated. We have learned workarounds. Fans, blankets, closed doors, adjustments. The understanding that asking whether someone is really hot or cold has never changed their body temperature. Ledger entry. One shared home, two climates. No universal setting. Heat index for a body being observed. Actual temperature, 91. Feels like being looked at before entering the room. The shirt remembers every place it touched. Unavailable when needed. Aggressive near paper. High for sweat, low for labor. Avoid direct questions about whether the person is hot. The evidence has already been submitted. Cooling center. The nearest bathroom with a lock and acceptable lighting. Risk factors include dark fabric, public transit, professional expectations, a body with history, and one chair with arms. Relief expected after sunset, though the building may retain heat and old opinions. Food. Heat changes appetite. Some foods become impossible. Others become the only thing that makes sense. Cold fruit, ice, something salty. A meal that does not require the oven or a person standing near it. After bariatric surgery, food decisions already carry structure. Heat adds another layer. Hydration matters. Hunger signals can become strange. Social events may revolve around food. The body does not want, in the temperature provided. People say, "You have to eat," as though the body has not been consulted. The body may agree in theory and reject every option presented. Jay's picky eating and my changing appetite can make summer meals a household puzzle. We look at menus, we eliminate, we negotiate. Eventually, someone suggests the safe option, and both of us pretend it was the plan. Ledger entry, delivery fee, because turning on the oven felt like self-sabotage. Beauty maintenance. Heat charges beauty twice. First, the products. Setting spray, powder, sunscreen, hair care, fragrance, clothing, designed to breathe while still looking deliberate. Then, the maintenance. Touch-ups, blotting, adjusting, checking, reapplying, carrying the small bag containing tools for preserving the face the weather has been revising. People call the result effortless because they did not watch it being maintained. There is humor in the arsenal. A tiny fan, a cloth, an emergency product, the strategic moment in the bathroom, where everyone repairs in silence under lighting that may not support the mission. I enjoy beauty. I do not enjoy pretending. It is free. Ledger entry. Products, time, attention, and one pocket now carrying half a department store. Workplace heat. Office temperature is never just temperature. Some buildings are freezing in summer because the cooling system has no emotional moderation. People arrive from heat, enter artificial winter, and spend the day carrying a sweater through July. Other spaces are warm because equipment, windows, occupancy, and old systems have formed an alliance. Fans appear, doors stay open. The room's sound changes, which matters in schools and for people using hearing technology. A fan can provide comfort and create background noise. An open window can bring air and traffic. The environment becomes an access decision. This is where maintenance and weather meet. A system designed without all bodies in mind forces individuals to compensate. Ledger entry. Comfort for one person may become communication cost for another. Temper. Everybody is meaner when they are hot. I know this is not universally true. Somewhere there is a person who becomes kinder at 98 degrees. I do not trust them. Heat reduces patience. The body is using resources. Sleep may have been poor. Clothing is irritating. The air feels close. Small sounds become personal. I have answered a reasonable question with a tone produced partly by weather. That does not excuse the tone. It helps explain why I needed to repair it after cooling down. Sometimes we treat emotional reactions as though they came from the mind alone. Bodies participate. Hunger, pain, fatigue, hormones, medication, noise, and temperature all enter the sentence. Understanding the condition does not erase responsibility. It may tell us which conversation should wait until the car has air. Ledger entry. One apology. Delivered after hydration. By the end of a hot day, comfort can feel like the only meaningful luxury. A cool room and clean clothes. Water and a shower. The fan aimed correctly and the shoes removed. The body no longer required to move through public space. That comfort is physical and social. At home, I can stop managing how the heat looks on me. I do not have to hide sweat, adjust fabric, or pretend the body is unaffected. Privacy reduces the performance cost. This may be why entering a cool home can feel emotional. The body leaves surveillance and temperature at the same time. Not everyone has that arrival, and some homes remain hot. Some people return to caregiving, cooking, noise, or work. Some bodies cannot cool easily. Some people sleep outside because the private space is less safe than the public one. The phrase, "beat the heat," sounds cheerful. The ledger shows who had equipment. Shade. Shade looks free until you need it in a crowded place. At an outdoor event, shade becomes real estate. People arrange chairs under trees, stand beside buildings, follow the moving shadow of a structure, and develop sudden interest in a vendor tent, selling something they do not want. The body knows the difference between direct sun and relief immediately. Shade also reveals design. And are there trees, covered stops, benches, a place for a child, elder, worker, or disabled person to wait without being exposed? Cities make choices about who can remain outside comfortably. A beautiful plaza with no shade is a photograph, not hospitality. I think about this when public spaces are described as available to everyone. Available is not the same as usable. The same bench, path, or event can become inaccessible when the temperature rises. Ledger entry. Shade. Listed as free. Distributed through architecture. Sunscreen. Sunscreen is another product that asks the body to believe in prevention. Apply before exposure and reapply. Use enough. Do not wait until the damage announces itself. The instructions sound simple until you add clothing, makeup, facial hair, sweating, skin tone, product residue, and the fact that some formulas leave darker skin, looking as though it has been dusted for fingerprints. Beauty and health products have not always been designed with every body in mind. A white cast is not a small inconvenience when the product meant to protect you makes you visibly unnatural in public. I have spent money trying products that promised invisibility and delivered a pale argument. The bottle remains expensive even after I stop using it. Ledger entry. Protection. Trial and error. And a face briefly prepared for a different complexion. The power outage. Heat becomes more serious when the power goes out. The fan stops, and the air conditioner becomes furniture. The refrigerator begins a countdown, and phones need charging. The house changes sound. During an outage, you discover which comforts depend on invisible current. You also discover how quickly information becomes social. Who still has power? How long will it last? Which store is open? Does anyone have ice? Is the freezer safe? For people using medical devices, refrigerated medication, mobility equipment, communication technology, or powered cooling, an outage is not a charming return to simplicity. It is a risk with a clock. I have worked around assistive technology long enough to know that backup power is access. Batteries, chargers, plans, and communication need to exist before the failure. Preparedness is easier when supplies, money, storage, and transportation are available. Advice often assumes all four. Ledger entry. The real cost of electricity becomes visible after the meter stops. Shopping for summer clothes. Summer clothing is advertised as light, easy, and effortless. Shopping for it can be none of those things. Fabric becomes thin enough to reveal every construction decision. White clothing asks questions about undergarments and courage. Shorts have opinions about thighs. Sleeveless shirts Assume the arm has agreed to public service. For larger bodies, the selection has historically been a punishment. Dark colors, heavy fabric, shapeless cuts, and the implication that the body should spend summer disguised as a curtain. As my body changed, shopping changed too, and more options appeared. That was pleasurable and irritating. The clothes had not become better because I had become more deserving of design. The market had simply decided which bodies it wanted to flatter. I can enjoy the new options and remain angry about the old absence. Ledger entry. One body, several size charts, no shared understanding of inches. Hair in the heat. Heat changes the scalp before it changes the photograph. Hair holds warmth and product moves. A style may be beautiful and physically demanding. The body begins calculating whether the look is valuable enough to keep intact. For black hair, summer advice can become a parade of assumptions. Protective styles, humidity, sweat, shrinkage, edges, wash, schedules, and the social belief that hair should remain perfectly legible while the climate does whatever it wants. I enjoy changing hair, and different styles let the face speak differently. They also come with maintenance. The observer does not see. The comment, "Your hair always looks good," can feel lovely. It can also make the labor disappear. There are days when the style survives heat. There are days when the hair makes a different decision, and I have to choose whether the new version is failure or simply the version that made it through the day. Ledger entry. Product, time, heat, and the emotional cost of pretending weather had no vote. The hotel room. A hotel room with strong air conditioning can make a person temporarily loyal to capitalism. You enter from the heat, and the curtains are closed. The air is cold enough to require a second thought. The bed is made by someone else. The room asks nothing except a credit card and eventual departure. On travel days, that cool room can feel like rescue. It is also purchased privacy. The ability to leave the hot home, crowded event, or difficult journey and close a door behind you. I have sat on the edge of a hotel bed after a public event and felt the body return in stages. Shoes off and jewelry off, glasses on the table and water, silence and air. Comfort feels deepest when the public version of you has been working. Ledger entry. Room rate plus tax. Paid partly for the right to stop being observed. The outdoor worker. Some people cannot arrange their day around heat because heat is where their labor occurs. Construction crews, delivery drivers, landscapers, farm workers, warehouse staff, kitchen workers, transit operators, event crews, maintenance workers, and many others continue, while the rest of us discuss whether to cancel brunch. The body becomes part of the job's equipment. Water breaks, shade, scheduling, protective clothing, and employer decisions determine whether the shift is merely difficult or dangerous. I am cautious about praising endurance. People working through heat are often called tough because the system needs them to remain available. The compliment can hide the question: why was the job arranged this way? And who had the power to change it? Ledger entry. Wages earned under conditions the customer may never see. The summer photograph. Summer photographs make heat look beautiful. Golden light and bare skin. Cold drinks and bright color. The image does not include the person holding blotting paper just outside the frame, or the argument about where to stand because the sun is attacking everyone's eyes. I have taken photographs where the final image looks relaxed, and the process involved sweat, repeated angles, a bag on the ground, and someone saying, "One more," in a tone that threatened the friendship. I like the photograph. I also remember the conditions. This matters Because images can teach us to compare our physical day with somebody else's edited temperature. We see summer as ease, and we live it as logistics. Ledger entry: 37 photographs for one image that appears spontaneous, body odor, and class. There are subjects polite conversation avoids until the heat makes avoidance impossible. Bodies, smell, and products attempt to manage this. Deodorant, soap, laundry, fragrance, clean clothing, private space, water, time, and money all participate. Public judgment treats scent as personal morality. A person is described as careless, without anyone knowing, whether they have housing, laundry access, medical conditions, medication effects, transportation, physical work, or enough clothing to change. I care how I smell, and I enjoy fragrance and cleanliness. I also know the fear of being read as the body that failed to control itself. For racialized bodies, scent can carry old stereotypes and humiliations. The pressure to be visibly and invisibly clean becomes part of public survival. Heat makes that labor harder, while making the judgment faster. Ledger entry: the price of being treated as neutral in a body that produces evidence of living. The fan. But a fan does not cool the room. It negotiates with the person inside it. Placement matters, and distance matters. Oscillation can feel democratic until the air leaves you and visits someone else. Couples can argue about fan direction with the seriousness of inheritance. One person wants it aimed directly, and another dislikes air on the face. The fan turns, and each person receives relief on a schedule they did not approve. The sound can help sleep or prevent it. The moving air can improve comfort and interfere with audio, papers, hair, or a candle someone should not have lit during a heat wave. I respect the fan because it performs limited work honestly. It does not claim to change the climate. It moves air. Ledger entry: modest equipment, high emotional value. After sunset. But sunset does not always end heat. Sometimes the light leaves and the temperature remains, like a guest who missed the cue. Evening carries expectation, and the patio should become pleasant. The walk should become possible, and the house should cool. When it does not, disappointment joins the temperature. I have waited for relief and felt the air remain still. The day seemed unwilling to close. This is when a shower, clean shirt, cold drink, and dark room become ceremony without needing to be called one. The body removes the day in layers. Ledger entry: relief delayed, patience charged by the hour. Water. Water becomes visible when heat raises the stakes. A bottle in the bag, and a fountain that works. A refill station near the event, and a glass brought without asking. These are small forms of infrastructure until the body needs them. Hydration advice can sound almost insulting in its simplicity. Drink water. The sentence assumes access, a bathroom, the ability to carry it, and a job that permits the person to stop. For some workers, drinking enough creates another problem because breaks are limited. For unhoused people, public water and restrooms may be restricted. For students, rules about bottles vary by classroom and building. The body needs water. The system decides how easy that need is to meet. Ledger entry: one basic necessity, branded, bottled, priced, and occasionally confiscated at the gate. Ice cream. Ice cream in heat has a deadline. The pleasure begins with urgency. Eat before the edge softens, before the cone leaks, before the hand becomes part of the dessert. I like food that refuses to wait for content. You cannot arrange ice cream for a long photograph in July. The object is becoming weather while you hold it. After surgery, Sweetness and quantity require attention. But the desire for a cold bite remains ordinary. A small serving can be enough physically and still feel generous because the temperature is doing half the pleasure. Ledger entry. Pleasure, melting faster than interpretation. The heat advisory. A heat advisory sounds official because the danger has crossed a threshold. Before the advisory, people complain. And after the advisory, institutions issue guidance. Check on neighbors and avoid exertion. Never leave children or animals in cars and seek cooling. The advice matters. The advisory also reveals how much safety depends on individual action. Check and avoid. Seek. As though everyone has a neighbor. Control over work, transportation, and somewhere cooler to go. Warnings should be paired with resources. Open locations, transportation, worker protections, accessible information, and plans for people whose bodies respond differently to heat. The weather may be natural. The level of harm is designed. Heat at night. Night, heat, feels unfair because the sun has already left. The body expects darkness to bring relief. Instead, the sheets retain warmth. The pillow loses its cool side immediately, and every sleeping position becomes temporary. Poor sleep enters the next day as irritability, slower thinking, and a body already behind on patience. Heat does not end when the temperature drops enough for the forecast to change categories. People without reliable cooling pay the bill again in the morning. Ledger entry. One night, several awakenings, next day's mood charged in advance. The shower. A shower after a hot day can feel like returning the body to private ownership. Sweat, sunscreen, fragrance, dust, and public air leave in layers. The water does not solve the heat outside. It changes what the skin is carrying. The first clean shirt after the shower is one of summer's most reliable pleasures. It remains clean for an uncertain period. Ledger entry. Water, soap, clean fabric, and the temporary belief that the day has released you. The cool grocery aisle. A grocery store in summer contains climate zones. Produce is cool, and frozen foods are a destination. The walk-in freezer doors release little breaths when opened. People linger longer than the shopping list requires. As a teenager working at Piggly Wiggly, I understood the store as labor. As a customer in heat, I also understand it as public cooling, funded by groceries. You can enter for milk and spend several minutes considering vegetables near the misting system, because the body has discovered a better plan. Ledger entry. One unnecessary item purchased as rent for air conditioning. The day began hot enough that the house already felt used before I got out of bed. There is a difference between waking into warmth and waking into heat. Warmth can be pleasant, and heat has been working overnight. It has occupied the walls, changed the sheets, and made every object feel slightly less cooperative. I checked the weather and immediately resented the number. The forecast offered advice as though I had requested coaching from the sun. Stay hydrated and limit outdoor activity. Wear light clothing. The phone did not explain how to dress lightly, look like myself, arrive professionally, and avoid spending the day thinking about every place fabric touched skin. I chose a shirt that had performed well before. This is how heat gets into a relationship with clothing. A garment has a history, and we trust it until conditions change. The shirt looked good in the mirror. 10 minutes later, the back had begun renegotiating the agreement. The car was worse. A parked car in summer is a class lesson with cup holders. People with covered parking, remote start, new air conditioning, flexible schedules, or no need to travel receive a different morning. I opened the door and felt the stored heat arrive as a physical opinion. The seat was hot. The steering wheel had become an object requiring strategy. I started the air and waited while it moved from insult to relief. Waiting for air conditioning is a strange form of faith. You know comfort is coming because the system has worked before. You still have to sit inside the evidence that it is not here yet. By the time I began driving, the front of my body had cooled and the back had not. This is one of summer's smaller humiliations, and comfort arrives unevenly. At work, temperature belonged to the building, and one room felt reasonable. Another held heat near the ceiling, and a person opened a door. Someone else worried about sound, security, or airflow. Every system had a purpose, and none of the purposes included the exact comfort of my shirt. I thought about schools in hot weather. A student does not stop needing access because the room is uncomfortable. Devices still need charging, and hearing equipment still needs attention. Staff still need answers. Bodies become slower, more irritable, and less patient, while the schedule continues using the same font. Heat makes small problems louder. A cable that will not connect feels personal. A slow computer becomes evidence of institutional failure. Somebody asks a reasonable question at the wrong temperature and receives the answer after it has traveled through sweat. I watched my tone. That effort is part of the heat ledger. Self-control costs more when the body is already spending energy on temperature. At lunch, I wanted something cold and simple. The body after bariatric surgery has its own relationship with hunger, fullness, hydration, and the pace of eating. Heat complicates the signals. I can know I need water and still postpone drinking because the day is moving. I can feel physically uncomfortable and misread it as mood. I drank water, but this should not sound heroic. It was water. The fact that basic care can become an accomplishment says more about adult schedules than it does about discipline. The afternoon required another trip. The car had reheated, as though the earlier cooling had been a temporary political agreement. I got in and began the process again. On the road, I remembered Piggly Wiggly and Aaron. I remembered the relief of the refrigerated aisle, the way a grocery store could offer a few minutes of cold without requiring anyone to own air conditioning, strong enough to defeat a Tennessee summer. As a teenager working there, I understood temperature through labor. The store was cool until a task placed you somewhere else. The parking lot waited. The carts waited. The customer was comfortable for part of the visit because somebody else moved through the heat. Air conditioning is not only a machine, it is access to money, a building, a job rule, a landlord's decision, a utility bill, a vehicle, a repair, and the ability to remain indoors when the forecast tells everyone else to reduce activity. People speak about summer as leisure because advertising has excellent air conditioning. The day continued. I had an event to attend later, and the idea of changing clothes became another expense. The first shirt had given what it could. I stood in front of the closet and looked for something that would appear deliberate without asking the body to pretend it was dry. I chose another shirt. The first went into laundry before the day had officially ended. Perfume and heat requires judgment. Too much fragrance can become another weather system. Too little feels like surrender when scent is part of how you prepare. I applied less than usual and hoped the air would behave. Outside, people had dressed according to different relationships with their bodies. Some seemed comfortable in very little clothing. Some wore layers that made sense for reasons I could not see. Heat makes bodies public in a way cold often does not. Skin appears, and fabric changes. Sweat becomes visible. People who already live under observation receive one more condition to manage. I have known the experience of entering summer while thinking about size, curves, skin, race, gender, softness, and whether the outfit will be read before the person. Heat removes some of the choices that clothing gives us. It can make the body feel like a document left open on a table. I am trying not to make every glance a verdict. That work is easier in air conditioning. At the event, somebody commented on the heat. This is the universal summer opening because it requires no risk. We agreed. The room had fans, but the fans moved warm air with dedication rather than results. I became less interested in being charming. Heat can reveal which parts of personality are supported by temperature control. I was still kind, but I was not sparkling. By the time I got home, the house had cooled slightly. Jay and I had the thermostat conversation that belongs to every marriage and every utility bill. Comfort is never only physical. Once the cost of producing it enters the room, we adjusted the temperature and we adjusted our expectations. I took another shower because the first one had become historical. That night, I placed a glass of water beside the bed. The shirt from the morning was still damp in the laundry. The car would heat again tomorrow. The utility bill would arrive later and translate comfort into numbers. The heat ledger for the day included 2 shirts, extra water, fuel spent cooling the car, time lost waiting for rooms to become usable, patience spent on ordinary questions, and the invisible labor of keeping the body from becoming everybody else's topic. There was no moral, and the day was hot. Everything cost more because of it. A cool room can feel neutral when you are already inside it. The neutrality is produced by equipment, electricity, insulation, repairs, rent, labor, and a bill somebody must pay. I have lived in bodies and worked in rooms where temperature changed, concentration, mood, access, and dignity. Heat is not only discomfort. It can make a task harder, a device less reliable, sleep thinner, medication storage more complicated, and conflict easier to begin. That is why I become suspicious when comfort is treated as indulgence. The person asking for a cooler room may be asking for the conditions required to think. I still watch the thermostat because money is real. I still negotiate with Jay because marriage is real. We adjust the number, the fan, the clothes, and the expectation that either of us will become cheerful simply because the air moved 3 degrees. Closing balance. 1 shirt washed early. 2 bottles of water. 1 utility bill waiting with information. 1 argument delayed until both people cooled down. 1 event left before the final song because the body had completed its contribution. 1 perfume applied with restraint and then blamed for circumstances beyond its control. 1 old fear about being seen in summer, still present but no longer managing the entire outfit. Heat does not reveal character in a clean way. It reveals systems, resources, bodies, and the amount of comfort we usually take for granted. Tonight, the temperature is supposed to fall. I believe the forecast. Because hope is cheaper than another air conditioner.